All right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I am here with my man, Chad Sievers. Chad, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Glad to hear it, and thank you, of course. Glad to have you on. It's going to be a great conversation. For those of you who might not be familiar with Chad, he is a transformation coach and he's also a model. So, pretty big in the fitness space, which, if you've been following along with the podcast, you know that that's a passion of my own. So, really excited to dive into Chad's passions and everything he's doing. Chad, do you mind kind of starting us off with a little bit of your background, who you are, what you're doing these days, all that good stuff?
For sure. So, yeah, I do all online one-on-one transformation coaching right now. And that's my primary thing that I spend the most time on currently. And I also work with two agencies in Pittsburgh and Columbus for modeling and slash acting gigs and stuff like that. So, that's about where I'm at right now, too. And, I can get into this a lot more here, but I actually went to school for IT, got a degree
Okay.
there and worked full time for a few years and started this as a side hustle, like the online training and stuff, and moved into doing that full time here. So,
Okay. So, when you were doing the IT, were you enjoying that work or was it kind of like, it pays the bills, but it's not really what I want to be doing?
yeah, exactly what you just said there. It does go back. Like when I went to high school, we had the opportunity to go for like a trade on the side. Like I'd do
Okay.
like kind of half days where I'd go to a different school. Uh, and I'd go there and I just picked a trade that was IT at the
Hmm.
time because my dad was just telling me like, hey, you should go for like a trade and all that for your career and stuff. And at the time, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I was just like, I'll go for it. So I did, and it was fun. I learned a lot, and I was like, hey, I might as well go for an associate's. So I did that. I got my associates in it, and moved in doing it full time. And I explained that because I just never I never had a passion for it. Like I never had like a real interest in it. So like once I got started, I worked there for a few years and went through a couple different companies, stuff like that. And I just didn't light a fire for me. So
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's important. And the theme, of course, the podcast is passions and what really, like you said, lights that fire up under you. And how did you get to what you're doing now? Where did those passions come from?
yeah, so the to explain that, I like I said, I whenever I first got into like the coaching side of things, that really stemmed from, again, it goes way back, but to kind of go into it here, like for me, I found fitness kind of late. Like I found it around end of college, like when I
Okay.
first got like my first IT job. And at the time, I just felt like it was something that, I don't know, I never really found anything I was good at growing up, per
Okay.
se, due to a couple of history things there. But I found fitness. I fell in love with it. I loved how it challenged me, got me to feel like I just felt like I was like crafting, like I was able to like work towards something and craft it more and
Hmm.
to improve more and all that. And that's kind of how it really developed. And I just wanted to find like an outlet for me to share this feeling I experienced with it to a bigger audience. And at the time, I just felt like if I could help someone for free, like a friend or like just someone I know, like that would just mean the world to me. It all started from there for sure.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people that get into fitness, like it's like once you start, you kind of get that like bug where you're just like, oh, I love this. You kind of just really get heavy into it. And then you get to that point where you're like, I want to help someone else. Or like, I made it work for me. Can I make it work for someone else? So it's really cool that you had that experience. So you started coaching people for free then when it started?
Yes, I did that for a while.
Okay.
I helped some friends in person, some family members and stuff like that when I first started and all that. And as I got into it more too, I don't know. I always felt so guilty at first, like putting a price tag to it because I just wanted to
Sure.
share this all for free, but and all that. And that's kind of how I really crafted things. Like I learned a lot of it just through like trying things on myself and
Hmm.
experimenting so many different ways with that. And, whenever I was helping people for free, I was like, I was seeing what works, what doesn't, and just honing in the craft more and more from there. So,
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like it doesn't even have to be fitness or, coaching even, but anything where we're maybe helping someone or doing a service for someone. I feel like we're always so like, "Ah, I don't want to charge people. Like, I just enjoy what I'm doing. So, I'm happy to do it for free." But I think, something that's important that I try to like remind myself and, peers and things is that like we also deserve to be compensated for our time and for our energy and everything. And, I think that you're fully deserving of it. So when you're starting out, it can be that little like awkward conversation when you're trying to like craft a price and you're like, I have no idea how much this should be. But
Right. It's just like that
it's
little guilt factor at first, for sure.
exactly. Yeah. And now like when you did start to charge people, Chad, did you have that feeling where you're like, I don't know, like, do I really know what I'm doing? Like, do I deserve X amount of dollars for, helping them come up with a plan? Or were you always pretty confident in your ability to coach and train people?
100%. So I would say I definitely had that little inside voice just tell me like, hey, you can't charge us for like this. You need to learn more about it. And for me, I felt confident in like what I could deliver and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like you still have that voice there with you, kind of just reminding you like,
Sure.
hey, like maybe you aren't like you don't maybe you aren't for this, or like you need to learn more or whatever. Like I think it's like a normal thing to really to have with you, you know.
Yeah. Now, that kind of like confidence, but also that voice in your head that might, give some doubt. Does that come into play when you do things like modeling or acting, where you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm confident in my skills or even my, appearance, but look at, this person and that person, that person. Like I don't even compare.
Yeah, so that especially like getting to the whole modeling and acting, so that's something I picked up in the last like year and a half. So it's
Okay,
still like newer for me,
sure.
way compared to coaching. So yeah, it's like when I remember when I got my first gig, I went in there and I'm just kind of just going in there for the first time. I don't really know what to expect and all that. And then there's just like three other models, like a big studio and a lot of people behind the scenes and stuff. I'm just like, man, I'm just gonna go with it. Like I feel like I
Mhm.
learned so many valuable lessons from coaching and going through those experiences of like starting a business stuff and just like understanding like, hey, you just got to go in, you'll figure it out as you go, and it's kind of being calm and collected with it. So,
Yeah.
but but yeah, like the comparison thing, like kind of like look at the other people that are more experienced. It's like it does give you that little intimidation at times too, but
Mhm.
again, I feel like I've learned personally just to really let go of that and just kind of go with the flow.
I love that. Yeah, I think that just going with the flow and focusing on what you can control is super important, and it definitely sounds like that's something that you've come to realize as well. You mentioned that through coaching, there's a lot of valuable lessons that you've learned that have helped you even in other aspects of your life, like now pursuing the modeling and the acting. What would you say some of or the biggest lesson that you learned from coaching has been?
That's a great question. So honestly, just through the outlet of coaching and stuff, and just like I said, even like starting a business, like
Hmm.
I will just say, I was just thinking about this as well. It's just like I think it's like one of the best self development journeys you can ever take on because you're thrown in there, you figure things out, you figure out what you're capable of, and all that, and I don't know, I just found like that you can really develop this um so many different aspects of yourself and all that. And I just learned so many different things of just like um, valuable lessons I really share with clients, like the self love, that dialing into passions more, like we're talking about here, and just really getting into that stuff more for sure. Like there's just so much that to go from there. So
Right. There definitely is. And I love that because I think that, we think about what you do as a coach and we might think about just like go to the gym, lift weights, or, go for runs, eat clean or eat right, however you want to word it. But there's other things that go into it, like you said, like finding those passions, finding the ways to be active that are most, exciting for you or to figure out self-love or self-acceptance. I think that a lot of our transformations, if you will, they're journeys. They're not, you know, I'm magically where I want to
yeah,
be. So it's about like enjoying that journey too.
And I feel like that's kind of like with the expectations you see like on the commercials or like, on social media now, like we see
Mhm.
this person that we just want these results and we just kind of expect that we hop on this diet or workout program just to get there. But there's just so much that goes on behind that too.
Yeah.
And, for me to kind of touch on that more, like I used to, like when I first started, like when I was helping people for free and like when I was charging like super cheap monthly, like I would just teach like, hey, like I'll craft a workout program, I'll get you like on a diet plan, but I would see they get good results, but then after that time passes, they'd either fall off or just,
Mhm.
regain the weight after a certain amount of time. So for me, is it's like looking back my own journey too, is it's like, well, there's a lot more that went into it. There's
Yeah.
a lot of the mental aspects and all the habits and all these different things, the self love, like looking at things from a different perspective and a different lens. And the majority of my coaching now is like what I do is it's like that stuff, like I call it the transformation coaching because it's like I do all the mental aspects and all that stuff because that's where the true transformation lies and
Yeah.
all that ultimately. So
I love that. Well, first of all, I will say you addressed one thing that I was thinking. I was like, I've never really heard it called transformation coaching. So thank you for reading my mind on that. But
of
you know, I,
course,
I love it. Like you said, like the mental aspect is so important. Even like just I think about going to the gym and trying to hit like a personal record or something. Like a lot of even just being able to bench, X amount, that's so much more mental than I think that most people realize it. Like, yeah, you have to have like strength and muscle to be able to do it, but I feel like sometimes we have like these mental barriers that stop us from achieving our goals or making those transformations.
yep, those are the things that really stick with you, and depending on what it is specifically for you, those are the things that are built from childhood, even like the
Yeah.
the limiting beliefs and the self doubt, all that stuff stems from way back. So I always say like that the true transformation lies behind you really confronting those, which can be scary and
Hmm.
does bring you a lot of resistance, but at the same time there's so much growth behind it and
Yeah.
all that. So
I love that, those limiting beliefs, maybe childhood trauma or experiences that we have, they might manifest into our, teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even. They're things that just, they might come out down the road, but we have to confront them. And like you said, that can be scary, that can be intimidating. So it's cool to know that you kind of serve as that guide to help walk people through how to do that.
yeah, and that's everything. That's just like that's one of the things that just gets me very passionate about it all, is just like really uncovering that more. And because once you overcome that, I mean, you really do find out so much about yourself and what
Yeah.
you're capable of whenever you just let go of all this stuff just like keeping you trapped and
Hmm.
and stuck. So
So with those kind of, like you said, things that keep us trapped or stuck, how do we uncover those? Like, let's say that you and I, we're not even going to work together. You're not even going to be my coach yet, but like I'm thinking about having you as my coach, and I'm like, I know I need to work on myself first. How can I uncover some of those beliefs to help me make that transformation?
it's a great question. So first off, I always say like whenever I have a client come in the program is like number one is like you got to bring that conscious awareness to that specific thing, because I'm sure, as like obviously we're subconscious beings, like it's over
Yeah.
95% of our brain. So everything we do, we don't really think about. We do it out of a habit. So
Mhm.
step number one is like just really, even if it's something as simple as like journaling about it for an entire day, like of thoughts that come up in your mind, or like journaling about the limiting beliefs you have, or the things you're holding yourself back with, just even like just practicing that, just journaling that, and just getting out in
Yeah.
the open and uncovering it. You'll be surprised what you do write down from that alone. It's an exercise that I do have my clients do. It's something I do and revisit every now and then just to kind of uncover more and stuff like that. So um again, number one, be conscious around it, and number two is just like take an action step towards it and confront it. And I always say like journaling and stuff like that's such a great way to really unravel it more, for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because with technology, social media, and just life, I feel like a lot of us get on like that autopilot mode where, like you said, we don't really realize or acknowledge what we're doing. It's just wake up, do this, do that, go to work, go do whatever responsibilities after work, stuff like that. We don't really always slow down and consciously like take in what's around us or what's going on or how we're feeling. And even just I think about when you go to a restaurant or you see someone or in passing, it's just like, hey, how are you? I'm good. But like, do you ever stop to think like, how am I actually doing? Like, what does good mean? Or am I even good to begin with?
Right, exactly. And I feel like just like you said, all the distractions and everything in social media, just like the phones we have,
Mhm.
all the stuff around us, like I feel like we've really lost that ability and that practice to really pause and be intentional about things, or like be
Yeah.
intentional with our answers, like that. You saying about being asked if you're doing good, and you just say good, but are you though? Like you don't
Right.
really take a minute to really assess that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, like you said, journaling is a good way to kind of actually ask yourself some of those questions and then to figure out the answers to those questions. And you might not know the answers right away, but I think with time and practice and just again focusing on being conscious and aware, self-aware, I think that's when you're really gonna lock in with those answers and see how you're doing.
100%. It's just a daily process, and just
Hmm.
again consciously just practicing that and
Yeah.
find the repetition with it, because then you'll discover so much about yourself. You'll start working against that, whatever it is holding you back, and you'll create
Hmm.
something new out of it. That's someone that's more aligned with you for sure.
I love it. So Chad, you've mentioned the idea of self-love and the importance of it, and just like how that's something you um, talk to your clients about. And I think that self-love, it's very important, of course, but it's something that I think a lot of us struggle with. Again, maybe going back to that social media aspect where we might compare ourselves and say like, oh, like so and so, is doing this with their life and I'm still trying to figure mine out. Or we're just making comparisons to our favorite actors and models and musicians and stuff. So what have you done in your life that has helped you kind of like with your own self-love journey?
Yeah, so I would say for that, honestly, just first off, take that step to get away from where I don't want to be is one of the biggest things, is in just moving towards that vision that I want for myself. And number two, like one of the biggest thing that's always been valuable for me, and what I usually talk about daily, is just like the worst thing you do is just compare yourself to someone else or this future version of yourself, because you're in a whole different situation right now. And comparing with somebody else, like everyone starts somewhere differently. So you can never ever, like, no matter what it is, compare someone with yourself in that sense. And one of the things you always want to do is, like, whenever you first find, like, whatever it is you get into. So since I do the health and fitness coaching, so we'll just use that. So if you're starting to change your body and transform and stuff, and you're starting to change your habits up, it's like after a few weeks, like, you're putting that intentional effort and all that stuff. And you always want to look back, and, if you're ever giving yourself a hard time, or like, oh my God, I could be doing this better, or like I should be at this point now. It's like, well, just pause for a second, take a look at what you're doing now compared to before. Like you'll find that it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not where I want to be yet, but I made a lot of different shifts right now. That's a lot better than I did last week or whenever that time was. And that's something that, personally, for me, whenever I could stop being such a hard critic of myself, because that was a big issue for me. So
Yeah.
speaking from experience here, big time on that. Whenever I could pull away from that, that really just brought a lot of happiness, and more of that self-love and appreciation for the action steps I'm doing, and who I'm becoming.
I like that a lot. I think that we get very caught up in the end result of where we want to go, that when we're not there, we get frustrated or mad at ourselves. But it's like, kind of like we talked about earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. And, the journey to get there isn't a linear, just straight line. It's going to have some ups, some downs. And I think it's just, again, kind of accepting where you're at and being happy with where you're at and seeing that you are moving towards the right direction. It just might be maybe slower than you'd like, but that doesn't mean you're not moving in the right direction.
100%. That's exactly how you got to look at it there. And like you said, within what you're saying there is just like the journey, the process. I feel like the biggest shift someone can make, and I for myself as well that I made is just like when you can just pull yourself away from that outcome instead of just like placing all the happiness and like, oh, once I get there, this is going to bring me this XYZ. Sure, it's going to bring great things, but if you don't love the process of getting there, you know, you're not going to be happy because you're not going to be doing things that most times in health and fitness spaces, like it's not really sustainable with the end result. So it affects the process greatly. So you want to fall in love with the journey overall and the process more, because that's like again, if we're talking the health and fitness space, like you don't just stop doing the things you did to get there. So you just kind of fine
Right.
tune the process and fall in love with it more and build into something that you can just keep going with and maintain.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Now, with your coaching in the health and fitness space, are there any like very popular or common misconceptions that you hear about the industry or about people that trying to go on their transformation journey or just coaching in general?
yeah, so the thing that I see the most with like clients coming in, and so I work specifically with like corporate women
Okay.
and all that. So they're busy, they have families and all that. And the biggest thing that I've seen with them coming on the program is that most times they just feel like they need to hop on like a specific diet and like just eat super low calories all the time to lose weight. And on top of that, like do all this exercise and all this cardio, but um, those two things can be the very things that just lead them to being stuck and plateauing and
Hmm.
not losing weight just because of stress it puts on their body and such. So that's like some of the two that really come to mind that I see almost pretty much every week whenever I have conversations with someone. So
Yeah, those that makes sense. I think that we're in kind of that era of like quick fixes or just like, oh, I saw that on social media and I can order that shake, or I can go do 10 hours of cardio today and whatever. So I think
right.
there's unfortunately some misinformation out there, but I think that, yeah, like you said, those are the things that kind of can get our wheels spinning a little bit, and we're just like stuck in that quicksand, and we're not really ever going to achieve what we want if we just kind of do the same thing over and over.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, with what you said there too, is like around the band-aid fixes. That's how we're just programmed. Like we want everything so quick, but
Hmm.
it's like those are the things that can be the most costly things that are keeping you stuck too. It depends on the area, but it's a dangerous mentality to have in some senses for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So as kind of like your career now doing your transformation coaching, um, that could be something that someone listening might be like, oh wow, that sounds amazing. Like I want that career. I want to do that. What's maybe one of the more like challenging things that people don't understand about having your own business or doing something like coaching, where sure, maybe you have more flexibility than your normal 9 to 5, but what's maybe some sides of doing that that people don't really see commonly?
Yeah, so it's a whole different mindset shift. So
Okay.
there's a lot of amazing things that come with it, like you said, like the flexibility, you control your own schedule and all that. But at the same time, like if you're someone who's like working full time and that's what you've been used to for so long, you got to shift your entire mentality around so many different things. Like you don't just focus on like one specific duty like you had at a
Hmm.
certain job. Like it's like you cover all the bases, like you do everything
Right.
around it. And you got to learn to be your own boss and to keep yourself accountable. And
Mm.
that's hard because it's hard because you don't have anyone saying like, hey, you need to do this. Like it's like you're telling yourself to.
Right.
And there's a big challenge with that. And for me, that's why I love always having a mentor with me and like for accountability every few months, just because it helps me like level up and push myself that way. But it's a whole different topic. But yeah, it's just like it's a lot of that. You have to learn to keep yourself accountable, learn to love the process through it all. And remember why you started, because there are going to be so many times when things don't click and don't work and all that, where you want to quit and all that, but you got to keep that vision in mind.
Yeah. I love that. And I really like the idea of having like a why statement. Like what is your personal why? And I think that that could be something that is relatable to people doing their career. So like why are you doing your career, or why are you motivated, just as a person? So Chad, I have to ask, what's your why?
My why?
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, with the coaching business and stuff, like what I do, for me, like I feel like this is, I know I don't like to say like this is my purpose, is this
Okay.
my duty, like what I'm doing. I don't think that's a thing. I think it depends, everybody's different, but it's like an outlet to me. And
Okay.
what I found my purpose is like, and like just sharing what I feel, like what I felt whenever I transform. So like the happiness and what's possible for them. That's what really does connect me with through this mission, is just like connecting with people on a deeper level and helping them really transform things from there and all that. And I bring up the happiness too, because for me, that's just something that like growing up goes way back too. It's like I've always, even through the worst times, I always had a smile. I was always kind of like the positive dude in the room, even though I was the most quiet one because I was the most introverted all the time before. So that had I had to change that a lot to get in
Sure.
this. But but no, like I feel like that's another outlet for me to share and to, just shift
Mm.
their mindset more. And I just feel like this is like an outlet for me to do so. So that's like kind of like wakes me up and gets me
Okay.
going. And to
That's
see people
awesome.
make these shifts, and like even if it's like a small win they have and what it
Hmm.
brings them, like that's just like exciting as hell to me. So that's what connects me to it big time.
That's awesome. So, I thought it was interesting that you said that you've always been the positive person, whether, you're extrovert, you're introverted, you were always kind of that person that had the positivity and had that smile. Um, you know, where did that come from? Or like how has that gone for you in your life? Like have you struggled with it, or is it just are you naturally just like that's who I am?
I think it's just something that's been natural with me since a kid,
Okay.
to be honest. I
I
just,
love it.
like I said, I was always the most like, I can't stress enough. I was always like the biggest introvert
Okay.
then. But in terms of like the positivity, I feel like probably since, with growing up, I think my mom was been probably the biggest like role model for me with that, because she was always like, and still is like always just like positive, even
Yeah.
through like the hard times and all that too. So growing up seeing that as a kid like that, I think that's what really shed the light on it for me to show up that way and stuff like that. So
Okay.
um something stuck with me since. So
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing. And, I see myself as someone that tries to be very positive all the time as well. And, the glass is half full kind of mentality. So to anyone that's listening who might struggle kind of with the positivity that we're talking about, do you have any advice for how to maybe change that perspective to the glass half full, or to just shift that mentality a little bit?
yeah, so I would say number one is like you kind of want to look on the other side of like holding that negative mindset and ask you like, does it really serve you having it
Mm.
first off? What does that bring you, like whenever you have that negative mindset and the emotions and feelings with it? That's something that's for me too, because I don't want to sound like the freaking positive hoorah, like happy all the time guy. Like the bad things happen, like the
Yeah.
mood gets off, like it's natural. But the more you can kind of take a step back and realize, like, if I hold this negative mindset towards things and stuff, like, is that actually what I want? Is that serving me? And I feel like that does determine a lot of uh, what your viewpoints are and stuff, because then you realize like, it doesn't, so maybe I should try looking at it from a different sense. And all that. So I feel like that would probably be a very good direction to kind of look at things at a different angle and challenge yourself
Right.
with, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you kind of saying, bad things still happen. And, you and I both positive people. We're not going to
Yeah.
sit here and say that we're happy, super positive every single second of our lives, right? Because bad things happen, things out of our control happen. But I think it's just like you're saying, how long do we take to actually sit with those feelings versus maybe process them or work through them, or just like acknowledge them and then move on? Like, what's kind of our process look like? And I think that it can be, again, kind of like that quicksand analogy of like, if we kind of just let it sit with us for too long, we just kind of keep spinning our wheels and we're like, well, today sucks because something that happened like a month ago, I'm still like holding on to, or, I can't work my way through.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest things too to help with that is just like you gotta let it go through and process,
Hmm.
and the worst thing you can do is just kind of avoid it. And the biggest skill that I've learned in my favorite book, which I'll go over here in a second, is the power of like letting go, is really letting go of it. Like if it doesn't serve you, let go, let things pass. And one of the biggest books that helped me through like this discussion we're having here is I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's called The Untethered Soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, oh my God. I've read it 4 times. Like
It's a great book.
that's really just helped me, like in this sense will really help me put things in perspective, and just like you process things, you let them go. And there's so many other golden nuggets in that book too, but
Yeah.
and lessons. But yeah, it's one of the biggest powerful tools you can have with that as well. So
Yeah, I definitely, I'm a big fan of the book and I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that sometimes we can struggle with letting things go, especially if it's maybe people in our lives that aren't serving us. And I'm not advocating that we just drop everyone in our lives or anything, but
right.
sometimes we have maybe a friend or maybe a situation with our family that's maybe a little more toxic, doesn't serve us well. Um, do you have any advice on maybe how to navigate a situation like that, or just how we can let it go, but maybe, not completely cut it off?
Yeah, I mean, this situation, obviously, if it's like a family member or like somebody closer, like a friend or whatever, that's been close for you for a long time. Obviously, like you said, you don't have to cut them off. Like, it
Hmm.
probably wouldn't be ideal. But one of the biggest things I would say for that situation is like learn to limit the time, if you will. Obviously, it's happening, and whatever the situation is, it's you're dealing with it right now. But the biggest thing you can do is just like, yeah, understand like it's happening, be real with it, and the best thing you do is just like limit your time and like the amount of um the thoughts and everything you put
Hmm.
with it into it, because then you're just like you exhaust yourself and you can only hold so much in your mind there. So I think a lot of it's dealing with limiting it for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And you mentioned the book and you've kind of talked about leveling up, in terms of your coaching and just continuing to grow. So, Chad, what kind of like personal goals do you have going on, or what are you currently doing to help get to the next level of your life? Are you big into any books, speakers, any practices, anything like that?
Honestly, the books wise, that's like the one that always comes to mind first
Okay.
for sure. Is that book? I literally I recommended to everybody in my close network to read it, because it just really does change your perspective on life
Hmm.
and how you deal with situations when they pop up. So if you're listening to this, I'm telling you, give it a read. It'll change your life.
Yeah.
But there's been a few other books too, but that's honestly the top one for me. In terms of like everything else, in terms of growth and development, for me, I just, like I said, I love investing in myself, whether that's like self development or like just with my coaching and stuff, just so I can hone my craft in more and all
Hmm.
that. That's something I'm always doing and looking forward to do here again this year. And for me, I want to have a bigger outlet in person as well. So I'm looking to do like more like in person stuff as well, like kind of like speeches and kind of like workshops and stuff like that. So that's something I'm trying to work on
Okay.
more this year, and to really expand, just connect with humans on a deeper level as well, and all that. So
I love it. That's awesome. And I think that, the world's been a little weird the last couple of years, to say the least, with everything
very
going on. So as we're kind of moving forward, I think that, yeah, there should definitely probably be more opportunities for you to kind of find those other ways to connect with people, maybe even on a more personal level. Not to knock, connecting digitally, even like we are, but I think that there is kind of something special about being able to connect in person as well.
yeah, it's a whole different. I mean, especially with the technology we have now. I mean, it's very crazy how we can just have a video call and all that now. So it's
Right.
very personal, that, but it is a whole different ball game to meet in person. And doing stuff like the workshops or like doing
Yeah.
speeches in person or just connecting with people on a deeper level in person. It is always different for sure. So
Yeah. Awesome. So the summertime is, approaching, summer, nicer weather, hopefully.
right.
Around this time, a lot of people, they might have the goal of like, okay, now it's time to start getting in shape, or, I really need to start watching what I eat or go to the gym more. Do you have any kind of, I'll say like basic health fitness advice for maybe someone that's listening who, they're not a big, um, you know, passionate person about, health and fitness, but they want to maybe try to lose a couple pounds or something for the summer, or, to go out on the lake or whatever. Do you have any kind of basic kind of intro advice?
Yeah. Well, I first say, um, really figure out if it's something that you truly want to do. Like if you have a deeper mission behind it, for sure, like
Mm,
dig into why it's important for you
okay.
to like feel that way in summer and stuff like that to make it like a lasting journey. So just connecting to that why and that purpose overall is key. But um to get ready for like the summer, and I know it's like it's super close now. It's only like what, a couple months away now at this point,
Right.
which is crazy. Time's
Yeah,
flying this year already. Can't believe it's already almost April, by the
I
way.
know.
So the time frame's a little limited, but I mean, first off, with that being in mind, like the nutrition's king
Yep.
ultimately. So the more you can just challenge yourself to, well, I would just say I'm a big proponent on like not restricting. I'm big on like including your favorite foods and find a way to include them. But yeah, maybe look at some of the smaller stuff like you're doing. If you're drinking a lot of like sugary beverages or like processed foods, like start by, you know, replacing it with something that's just like less processed. It's more of like a whole food, something that's found like more on like the outside perimeter of the grocery store, for example. And include that a little bit more and just take it step by step. Same thing with your movement too. With your movement, if you are used to working and you just go straight home to the couch and you don't really exercise, like start by putting your shoes on like one day of the week and just go for a walk around the house or walk outside. Just kind of like ease yourself into it,
Yeah.
embrace what it brings you, and accelerate it more where you can, and just build it. And that's really how you start to form new habits and really get yourself to just start feeling it. Like you start feeling it,
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, hey, this feels good as hell. Like let's increase a little bit more. So
I love everything that you said with that answer. I mean, I think first of all, just to acknowledge the point that you said, like to draw it back to the why and the purpose, and make sure that it's kind of like a lifelong thing, not just like a it's summer, I want to be able to take a good picture for my Instagram. Like
right.
actually making that connection to why it's important. Or, I mean, even if it is something maybe, more kind of vanity wise like that, just saying like, well, it's important for me to feel confident over the summer when I'm, out with friends at the lake or something, so I can take good pictures, whatever. Just find that why. I like that you mentioned that. And then, in terms of kind of just like the nutrition and the movement, I think it's super important that you mentioned kind of like to ease into it, because I think that, you know, there's a lot of times where people are just like, okay, I have a month or 2 months to get in the best shape of my life. So I'm going to go, you know, take my diet that's maybe sugary drinks, fast food for lunch here and there, processed food, to I'm going to have salads only and water only, and I'm gonna go on the treadmill and run for 2 hours a day and do weight training for 3 hours and stuff. That's when we just burn out, and we can't just dive into the deep end right away and expect results.
Exactly. It just puts you in like it's like you're on a time limit. And like
Yeah.
once you do just stop and you just can't do it anymore, you just usually I just what I found is it's like you fall back into a spot that's really hard to get out of
Hmm.
mentally and physically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I just always say like I wanted to stress like the why and purpose behind it all, because like if it's something like you want to find confidence in over summer and stuff, why? Like get in
Yeah.
deeper, like get more
Yeah.
specific. Because that'll make it more of like just that alone will change your perspective on it and your whole mindset around like the decisions you make. So that's
Yeah.
like the foundation for sure. So
Yeah. Definitely. And I also really like that you said, incorporating the foods that you enjoy and not restricting. I think that's huge. I mean, like I said, fitness and health and nutrition is something I've always been passionate about. And I'll have friends or people in the community that I talk to, and they're like, I really wanted, chocolate or something, but I can't have it. And like, there's like Hershey Kisses, like a single Hershey's Kiss at like, you know, at a restaurant or something in the jar, but I couldn't have it because if I have that one like chocolate, my diet's over. I just had chocolate. And, I think that's, again, one of those maybe like misconceptions that we have. Like, food's not necessarily like bad.
Exactly. It's how you label it,
Hmm.
honestly, and your relationship with it.
Yeah.
And, funny story around that too. For me, I can think back to a time where when I was working full time in IT, I literally, I swear to God, like almost 2.5 years, I didn't have a slice of pizza or like chocolate. Like I was that like next level
Okay.
restrictive, like
Yeah.
crazy. Like even when my coworkers would always go out to lunch, and I always had my Tupperware containers. Like I never really went, but if
Yeah.
I did go, I would literally take the Tupperware container of my meal and I'd eat at the table there. Like it was so unnecessary, like
Yeah.
looking back, but at the same time, like I'm glad I did because it gave me that
Hmm.
experience to realize like, my God, like that was miserable and that was so silly. But uh, just again, like when you do that to yourself, it just hampers your relationship with food.
Yeah.
And it's not good at all whenever you look at that way, in that sense. So
Yeah. And I've definitely, I'll admit, I've been there as well, where it's like, oh, family's going out to dinner, friends are going out to dinner or lunch. And you're either just like, no, I don't want to go because that's going to ruin my macros for the day, or, I already prepped out my lunch or whatever. Or you go and maybe you bring your own Tupperware and eat there, or you just get a water and you drink your water while you watch people eating wings and pizza and, having a drink and stuff. So, it's like you said, I'm glad that I did experience that, but you get to the point where you just realize like it's just silly. I mean, we're just
yeah,
life is about living and experiencing and making memories and stuff. And I think it's just finding that healthy relationship. So, if I call a Jep right now and said, hey Chad, let's go grab a pizza. We can go do it and not care about what we're eating and enjoy, but we're not gonna go eat 5 pizzas collectively and all the dessert
yeah,
there or something.
exactly. You just find your balance. Like
Yeah.
you just really learn to, add it in more importantly versus restricting. And just like
Hmm.
when you have it, you just portion it out,
Yep.
and one of the biggest skills you learn too is just like learning to eat till you're full. Because
Yeah.
once you push past that, like, oh my God, I can think of like Thanksgiving, for example, like so many times where I just like push through and, that's a prime example. It's like you push through, you get dessert, like you just feel you need to eat all this food, then you eat past that. And that's whenever you just feel like just terrible and defeated and
Hmm.
all that. So just, adding it in, learning to eat till you're full, like it's such a valuable skill. Because if you don't and you restrict these foods, it's like you're taking yourself away from living the present moment with whoever you're with and,
Yeah.
just enjoying life.
Exactly.
All those things are so much more important than, these foods here. And you're cutting out here like the mentality with it. So
Right. Yeah. And I mean, just to anyone listening, like Chad for his jobs, I'll say, including modeling and acting. Um, I can argue that he might have to be a little more strict on his workout regimen and his diet because it is for his job. But to those of you listening and myself, we're not getting paid. We're not making a living from the way that we look or how much we can lift or whatever. So I mean, if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a model, if you're an actor, yes, you might have to be a little more strict. But to just the everyday person listening, like definitely don't restrict yourself or limit your life from these experiences and these foods and stuff because we don't need to do that. There's the only pressure to do that is the pressure we put on ourselves.
you nailed it. I mean, seriously, it really depends on your situation.
Hmm.
Like if you're not like, a bodybuilder or like,
Yeah.
the coaching or like whatever, like you don't need to do that. Like
Right.
it's such a big tax in your life. And
Hmm.
but it's a very easy misconception to make to move into that just because of the expectations may hold for yourself to get there quickest, or like the things you see
Yeah.
online and stuff like that. But ultimately, you just want to realize like it's about building it into a lifestyle that
Yeah.
you personally enjoy. Not what something that works for your friend or like colleague. The diet they're on doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
you got to find what works for you and build into something you love more and you can develop more over time. And just be okay with it taking a little bit more time.
Yeah.
But that's one of the biggest things you can do is just like accepting that you're not going to get it right away.
Hmm.
But learn with yourself and go through those experiences, because all the bad and good ones are all the same thing. They're experiences. So you just learn more and
Exactly.
more.
Yeah. And that's what life's about, right? Experiences, good, bad, all the in between. That's what we're here for.
100%.
Definitely.
Exactly.
So, Chad, are you currently taking on any clients, or are you pretty booked with your current uh, clients that you work with?
Yeah. So I do take on a certain amount of clients every single month. So I
Okay.
always aim to have at least 5 on per month,
Okay.
just because it's a very one-on-one process. So
Sure.
we do calls every week. I check in with my clients daily and all the one-on-one time. So yeah, I actually have a few spots left this month
Okay.
still. So yeah.
Perfect. And you mentioned that the usual client that you work with is corporate women, usually is like kind of the demographic.
That's my primary client I help. That's like where I
Okay.
do like all my content and all that stuff is all built to them essentially. But I still have a few male clients. I have someone that's like outside that realm. So
Okay.
if it's something that where I can see if it is a perfect fit for them, like the systems work and all that, like we can definitely get them set straight forward here. So
Okay, perfect. So, to anyone that's listening and maybe they're interested in having you as their coach, or just want to see, maybe the two of you want to see if you're a good fit for each other, what would be the best way for someone to check out your service or to get in touch with you?
yeah, so the best way as of right now, I'm the most active on Facebook.
Okay.
I am on Instagram, so I'm sure we can leave the description in the description somewhere.
Yep.
But it's just my full name, so Chad Sievers. That's my username on Instagram. We can touch base on there. Facebook, I'm on there as well, Chad
Okay.
Sievers. I have a Facebook page as well, specifically for corporate women. So if you fall in that category, I have a lot of free content in there, a lot of free trainings and workshops in there.
Okay.
But those are the two best platforms you usually catch me on for sure to connect
Awesome and
more.
perfect. And like Chad said, I will put in the description of this episode his Instagram and Facebook page. So those are good ways to check out his content and also get in touch and connect if you do have any questions, or even if we just talked about something today that you found really interesting. Reach out to Chad. He's a great guy, and I'm sure he'd love to hear from you and love to connect.
Seriously, like what you said right there, like if something resonated with you here, like something just at home, like reach out. Like I just love talking about this stuff, honestly, like around what you're dealing with and all that. And I think it's such a powerful thing to go to somebody and just talk about things to learn more about it and unravel it more. So yeah, seriously, please feel free to reach out. So
Awesome. Well, Chad, it's been great talking to you. As we're wrapping things up, do you have any last thoughts, message, words, anything that you want to leave with anyone listening today?
I'd honestly say, like I said a few times in there, but just if you get anything out of this, remember you want to build everything towards your journey and your process, and really just get into that why and set that foundation, build everything from there, and all that. So that's the biggest thing that comes in my mind right now. But other than that, I appreciate your time a lot for having me on here. It's been awesome chatting with you. So
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on again. And I think Chad, hit a great message with that statement. Figure out your why and really dig deep to discover what that is for you. And Chad mentioned, if anything resonated with you, to go connect with him. And I'm going to encourage you, if if you enjoyed this conversation, take some time, figure out your why, and message Chad. Let him know what your why is, or message me and let me know what your why is. Let us both know. Let's have a conversation
absolutely.
about it. Let's connect. But Chad, it's been a pleasure. Like I said, thank you again for coming on. I'm excited for your future and to see the things that you accomplish and the places that you go to do workshops and speak. I definitely will be following along with your journey, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you.
Likewise, man. I appreciate it so
Thank you.
much.
Of course, man. All right, you take it easy. Have a good one.
You too. We'll see ya.
See ya.